Back on the campaign trail here on Ed Schultz News and Commentary, following up on the comment and the new effort by Donald Trump to identify terrorists in this country. Of course, we all know he's been touting the big fence and how he would do it and how we've got to protect our borders. But now he's taken it a step further, being asked on a rope line in Newton, Iowa last night about creating a database to identify Muslims. This after the United States Congress voted yesterday in the House 289 to 137 to pause the resettlement refugee program with Syrian and Iraqi refugees. For more on this, let's go to Congressman Steve Cohen of Tennessee. Congressman, good to have you with us.
Ed, good to be back with you on the eve of the Temple-Memphis game.
You bet. That should be a good one.
It should be. Our quarterback's even taller than Joe Bruner. And he's good.
That goes back decades.
Goes back when you were a quarterback. Former University of Memphis jock.
It certainly does. All right, Congressman, the vote yesterday. Not all Democrats were on board, and 45 went with the Republicans on this to pause the program. Your take on the vote. Where are we?
Well, as I counted it, if 5 of the people who voted against it, 5 of the people who voted for it, let me take that back, didn't, it would have been almost at the level where it would not have been an override of a veto. So the president and the House needs to pick up 5 of those Democrats to balance the numbers. In the Senate, whether they get 60 or not. But what happened in the House yesterday, there were a bunch of nervous Nellies. We had a really fractious caucus meeting. Dennis McDonough came in and tried to explain the situation, and it really wasn't explained real well about how this would hurt the administration and hurt their policies.
So the White House was lobbying the Democrats.
The White House came in to try to sell the program. Their lobbyists were working real hard, and there were just a lot of folks that thought that this would hurt them in their districts and that they would hurt other Democrats in their districts, and that we were down to 188 and the worst we've been since Herbert Hoover, I guess, and that it would get worse in the next election. I think they were I voted against it. And I think it was the right thing to do, and I think it was a safe thing to do, too, because I think the thing that didn't do much of anything. It required 3 officials to sign off and say that they certify that these individual Syrian refugees or Iraqi refugees would not be a threat to the country. Well,
the statistics and the numbers just don't support the fact that they would be a threat because the vetting process is so thorough. I just find it's more fear, and I think the president's done a good job of explaining that. I'm surprised that the Democrats didn't line up with the president on this issue.
Well, they were afraid. They were just afraid.
It's election politics is what it is.
And by the time the election comes around, that's not going to be an issue.
Okay. Is this going to be an issue, what Donald Trump said about creating a database for Muslims? This takes us into new territory, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And when I was watching Rachel Maddow last night, and I saw her talking about it, and I believe what they said, and if I've heard it correctly, was that most of the Republicans agreed with that. Now, that's a scary thought.
That is a scary thought. Now, the Republican Party now is for IDing. Now, I have connected this to gun violence in this country. I mean, a terrorist attack is a terrorist attack. When you shoot up schools and when you shoot up public places, and whether you kill 10, 15, or 30 people, it's still a form of terrorism as I see it. So the Republicans want to ID Muslims, but they don't want to ID firearms. They don't want any gun registration. They don't want any background checks. What's with these people? Is this who the Republican Party is now?
Well, there are 2 branches, but the largest branch is really extremely nativist, and it's very scary. It's Father Coughlin on some of the things you read about in history. The idea of IDing people does kind of go back to the Germans and what they did with the Jewish people, and Donald Trump was trumped on that, and he couldn't respond to it when they asked how does this compare to having Jews be registered in Germany, and he couldn't answer because it's a similar type of thing. It's just insane, but it's fear. And it's fear of others, and it's I want my country back. And this whole Republican, the primary is unbelievable. You got a bunch of people who aren't qualified. Usually the people that don't win, they think they'll be in the cabinet. These guys aren't qualified, nor Carly, to be in the cabinet, let alone be president. I mean, it's just absurd.
So where do you think this comment from Trump is going to go? I mean, clearly the media is going to be asking the other Republican candidates, would you support something like that? This is going to draw them out, isn't it?
Well, some of them, somebody like Kasich might say that's not the right thing to do. A few of them will say that, but I think the rest of them are going to be afraid, and they've been afraid to say the right thing and do the right thing because they know where their base is, and they're appealing to that base. And Cruz isn't going to say it's wrong, and I don't think Huckabee's going to say it's wrong. Huckabee will double down.
Yeah, and what about Rubio? Rubio as well?
I don't know what he'll do. I don't know what he's the craftiest, most clever of all of them. I've been in politics for 50 years, I guess, and I've seen a lot of candidates and served with a lot of people. Marco Rubio is similar to guys I served with who were just knew exactly what to say. They didn't necessarily believe it, but they said whatever was necessary, and they were just perfect with throwing out the buzzword. He's the scary candidate because he will say and do anything, and he makes people. He's young. His mother was a maid. His father was a bartender. He doesn't.
He's got the middle class or lower middle class background story that appeals to people, and everybody in this country wants to think that they can make it.
He's got the spin, and yet he sucks up to the rich people, and he's sold out to them entirely. They're all frauds. It's amazing what they've got going there.
Speaking of words mattering and what people say and what they think, Ben Carson offered up another dandy yesterday, comparing these Syrian refugees to rabid dogs. Listen to this.
We must always balance. We must balance safety against just being a humanitarian. For instance, if there's a rabid dog running around in your neighborhood, you're probably not going to assume something good about that dog, and you're probably going to put your children out of the way.
Now, when I first saw this, I thought, what? And then the next story on Ben Carson was, well, he's falling in the polls. So maybe people are figuring this guy out. Congressman, I don't expect you to respond to that. It's psycho talk is what it is. And this guy's all over the map. But it just seems to me that every day it's a new chapter with the Republicans and a new problem. They're grabbing at sound bites, trying to get attention, the flavor of the month. They're really, as a party, in trouble, are they not?
They're a party in trouble, and Ed, you and I might be the only two guys out here that remember them, but Chuck Percy and Bill Scranton, Nelson Rockefeller, those type of Republicans don't exist anymore. Howard Baker, they're not around. This party is really a very extreme right wing, but the scary thing is it represents so many people in America.
Yeah.
What has happened? What is religion? They talk about. I was watching Colbert, and he showed. Bush said something about you could identify Christians, and we surely bring Christians aren't terrorists. And he showed some Klansmen. He said, "Oh, they're not." The biggest terrorism in the history of the world was the Klan and people in the South that lynched African Americans and murdered African Americans and threw them into rivers and buried them and down when they tried to get their voting rights. Those were the biggest terrorists in the world, and they did a lot of it saying that Christianity was supported segregation and was against miscegenation.
And finally, Congressman, will the president get authorization of the use of military force from the Congress? Why won't the Republicans bring that up for a vote?
Why they won't bring it up, I don't know. I think I really don't know why they won't bring it up. Yeah,
would it pass?
Yeah, it would pass.
And that would put the president in a position to use greater force and to defeat ISIS, which I think the Republicans don't want him to do, because it would prove a successful run for the president. And I think there's a real anti-Obama movement going on here, and that's why he has not been given the full throat to be able to do what he wants to do as commander-in-chief. Your thoughts?
Everything goes back to Mitch McConnell, and our job is to defeat Barack Obama and make sure he doesn't get a second term. They want to destroy his legacy. They want to destroy him as a human being. This whole vote yesterday was basically nullifying Barack Obama as president.
Sure,
he cannot keep us safe from terrorists and do immigration, which is his job. So we're going to do it for him, because his name is Barack Hussein Obama, because he cares more about Syrians and Iraqis and Middle Easterners than he does Americans, because he's really a Muslim, and he was born somewhere else, and he's got this mosque he goes to secretly. And that's their whole basic underlying story, and they're staying with it. And they don't want Hillary Clinton, who I'm going to introduce today in Memphis, Tennessee, at Lemoyne Owen College, the next president of the United States, and they don't want her and they know if they can hurt Obama and hurt the Democrats, they can hurt Clinton, and they can get the White House. And if they get the White House, and they'll keep the Senate, and they're going to keep the House, they may keep the Senate, and they've got the Supreme Court, this country is towards 1930 Germany. I mean, that's extreme. That's extreme. I know. I shouldn't have said that. I could get in big trouble. But they are extremely right-wing.
You got to call them out for what they are.
It'll be a right-wing world. And they will appoint the next Supreme Court justices to replace Ginsburg and Breyer and Kennedy, and then think where this country will be. Citizens United, it'll be Citizens United for the 1/5 of 1% citizens.
How does Hillary play in Tennessee, in your opinion?
The Democratic primary, she's going to win big. Bernie's great on the issues. Bernie and wonderful and all that, but Bernie doesn't have. And he's got some Birkenstock support. He's got some liberals and a lot of my folks. And of course, I love Bernie. But Hillary's got people. She's still Bill's wife, and she was down here from Arkansas. And African Americans love Hillary, and minorities love Hillary, and women love Hillary. And
would she win Tennessee?
Yes, she'll win Tennessee. In the Democratic primary, she will. Now, whether she'll win against a Republican, I don't think so.
Well, it's no shame. Al Gore didn't win Tennessee either.
This state's not so right-wing. It's unbelievable. But our football team is great. Go Tigers. Beat the Owls. Go to a bowl game. We're a football school.
Great to have you with us, Congressman Steve
Good
Cohen.
to have you, and happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate it.